Hello, everyone, and welcome to Module 6. This week, we're talking about working with stakeholders and audiences. So, as you've noticed, we started off a lot with Tableau, just really getting in, making charts, trying to both look at things creatively. So, how would you look at this data? How would you visualize it? And then looking at it from how would you answer these specific questions? So, thinking about like the Airbnb homework that I know is a little bit more difficult, but how many hosts were in this specific neighborhood, and looking at things that way. So as we progress through this term, since there are only 8 modules, we're getting to the very end. Now we're starting to think more big picture and what kind of happens after this class, because we can't reasonably learn everything there is to know about data visualization in 8 weeks. That's really, really fast. So I want to set you up with some things to think about, consider as you start moving forward. So some learning objectives for this week. You're going to interpret user requests and requirements to do a few different things. Determine feasibility of requests. So you're already starting to get to know like what's possible data-wise, what's possible in Tableau. You're probably reaching that point where you're like, wait, how do I know how to do this in one way? How do I do it in Tableau? We're going to think about it in a slightly different way. You're going to estimate time to implement changes, and we're not going to do it in such a way that I'm going to tell you an exact formula. I so wish there was one that would make my life a lot easier, but more just how to frame it up, how to get started in that kind of direction, and then make recommendations for action plans. This module is very broad, because there are so many ways to approach this. There's so many different ways to set up who is a stakeholder, who's an audience. Um, and as you'll see, there's no one way we could possibly answer this, but this is hopefully going to give you some ideas of how do you even start to approach this. A lot of you are at very different stages in your careers, which is really exciting. We've got people just starting out, and really starting to explore data analytics. We've got people that have been in their careers for a while, and you're starting to either make a shift to analytics or you want to be more analytical in your current career. So a lot of this, you might be taking it in the context of where you are right now. So I hope wherever you are in your career, wherever you are, if you're in analytics, you want to get into it at some point. I hope you find this helpful as you start navigating those conversations and those scenarios. Oh no, some of this moved a little bit, sorry. So data visualization is both an art and a science. There we go. We've talked about that quite a lot. I spent way too much time trying to find a good picture for Art Critic. And I found this one by Rockwell, which was perfect. Um, so when we're thinking about something as both an art and a science, we, I mean, realistically today, in today's world, people are arguing about what is science. So we're starting to get to know, okay, we're going to be questioned in our science. And because it's an art, you're also going to be questioned. You're going to be critiqued in the way you present things. It's something that you're going to have to prepare yourself for. It can be a very difficult topic, difficult concept to start to understand, because if you were a more, I always forget if it's a left or right brain, if you're a more scientific person, you might have been more used to the math, the statistics, the economics, things that are more not 100% black and white, but a little bit more black and white. You come to a conclusion, you come to some sort of answer that generally people are going to say, yes, that makes sense. Data visualization can be an iffy one because we get to some answers. We do use visualization as an analytical tool, but also visualization is a method of looking at data, exploring data. And exploration doesn't always have an end. It doesn't always have a right and wrong. Art doesn't always have good and bad. And we've all had pieces that we've liked and not liked, and everything in between. And that's something that's really, again, difficult as you're getting started. It can be hard not to take things personally. So I want to help you approach those conversations as you're developing your data professional career, and just kind of frame up how to handle that in a way that hopefully you don't get your feelings hurt, and also how to help the people around you understand your work a little bit better as you go along. So as you work with stakeholders, just kind of defining who that is first. Stakeholders are those that are influenced by your work or that are influencing your work. And that can vary wildly when we're talking about analytics. We're going to get into some of the ways that can vary. Um, but our field is still expanding quite a bit. When we talk about analytics, if you read the text, it's quite often talking about a big corporate environment, the big four, big five, however many we're up to at this point. Or we're talking about a really small shop, or maybe you're the only analyst on the team. There's a lot in between. I've worked at a lot of different places. I'm a job hopper. Um, and I've worked in so many different environments, and how we approach stakeholders and audiences and visualizations in general, um, so different depending on where you are. So again, we're breaking this up a little bit into more consumable parts. And some of the things that we're going to think about, just in general, are you creating visuals to accompany an analysis? So think about some of the visuals you've made, the Airbnb ones. You were making visuals, but they were really answering questions. You could have answered a few of these in an email and then had the visuals to say, like, here's, some explanation. Some of your visuals might go in a PowerPoint someday. That's where a lot of visuals end up living when you're working in the corporate world. Are they going to be on a website? Are they going to be something that people will interact with every day? Are they going to be something that are more real time? They're updated. People are like refreshing and constantly looking at it. Are they going to be used by people outside the company, inside the company? Um, are they going to be seen by other people at all? A lot of my work, honestly, this is why I get really lazy with Tableau sometimes. I use Tableau to accompany my research, my work, but I didn't have to share a lot of the work I did. Um, so having to share my work again and work with other people and like show them my visuals got kind of scary when I had to re-enter that world. Um, because for so long the visuals were just for myself. They were my way of helping my brain kind of figure out, okay, how do I want to approach this? Could the visualizations be used to inform decision making, and in what context? Are people going to be using these visuals again in more real time? They're going to go to a dashboard, make a decision right then. Are they going to look at this in more of a retrospective? This is how these things happened last year, um, and everything in between. So, really kind of framing up who are stakeholders in general and how do we work with them. So, to kind of frame up how do we handle this really complex situation, I'm going to talk about it in four different ways. First, we're going to look at the analytical team, then the company culture, audience, and then the actual viz request. And I'm going to go through some examples at the end. Some of these you're going to be looking at in different courses. I'm sure as you're in business intelligence, you're looking at some of these factors. Um, I always forget the name of the course, like analytical consulting. It's near the end of your MSDA program. There's one course that you'll talk more about analytical maturity. So I'm going to briefly describe that here. So these aren't things you're going to need to know 100% right now. It's something I'm hoping you'll go back to this at the end of your program, and some of it will click a little bit more. So to start off with your analytical team, um, I believe all of you are employed full time right now. So I'd love for you to just take a moment and think about your team in general, whether you're on an analytical team or whatever your career is at this point. And think about these terms: center of excellence versus team embedded. So a center of excellence means that everybody on your team is doing a specific function. So in the analytical team context, that means all of our analysts, data scientists, whatever our company describes these people as, they're all in a team. And then say the sales department needs something, they would go to that data team for that request. A team embedded model means that the sales team, sales department, they have their own data person or people. Marketing has their own. And again, there's variations on all of this. I've worked at both. I've worked at hybrids of them. I've worked where I was the only data scientist. I've worked where I was the only person that knew anything about data and I didn't have any sort of data title. Um, and again, all sorts of hybrids and in-betweens. This is going to change how you communicate with your team and across the company. So in a center of excellence model, that's going to start, and actually I'll get to that in a moment when we get to the key questions. The other kind of things to keep in mind here, experience and capabilities of your team. So again, depending on what kind of team you have, do you all look at the same types of work? And that goes into team structure and responsibilities. Who makes, and I'm going to just keep going, I'm going into key visualization, questions as I chat. Who on the team makes visualizations? So is it a team that everyone does analytics and you just do whatever type of analytics fits your project? Do you have someone on the team that does all the SQL, and then you've got a predictive model person, and then you've got a visualization person? You can have a team and one person specializes in sales. There's a marketing person, you split it that way. It could be random. There's all sorts of ways you can do this. And I kind of set it up like that to say, depending on how your team is set up, that's going to change a lot of the aspects of how you handle any of these things. So first, do you have set standards and guidelines for publishing visualizations? So again, I've worked on all sorts of teams. I've had one where we had that center of excellence model, and they had very specific ways they wanted things published when we used Tableau. They never actually told us how they wanted it. They would wait for me to finish my dashboard and then tell me that there were specific sizes and things that they did. So along the way, we started saying, hey, maybe we should, have someone that was specific to Tableau. So we weren't going back and forth and trying to do all this. Why don't we have just one person that makes these dashboards? I think they ended up doing that later. I'm going to use the example from A Place for Mom later. On that team, we were a team embedded model. So each division had their own analytical team. And on that analytical team, we all had specific tasks. So I was the SQL guru. I love SQL. If you ever chat with me about data stuff, I love databases and figuring out how to get data out. And then we had one person that, and at this time, I had no idea this was the thing. He only made Tableau dashboards. He didn't know how to write SQL. He didn't know anything about data science, but he was such a good Tableau person. And he should have learned SQL and all of that stuff. So I am glad you're learning the other things too. But we had one person, and that one person created the guidelines, and he did all of that stuff so that as other people joined the team and we started expanding, he had already written the rules for everything else we're going to do. If you were all splitting up some of the work that comes in, so a project comes in, it's either maybe randomly assigned or assigned based just on availability, interest, whatever it may be. How do you think about, different styles? Should everything have the same look and feel? Does your team just kind of wing it? Do you all make visualizations at all? Maybe this is the first time you're actually looking at this. So all these are really important questions just to at least get started. And as you start going through this and start answering those questions, that helps lead you to the next kinds of conversations you need to have. And that goes into company culture. Oftentimes your analytical team and your company culture will go hand in hand, especially around analytical maturity. So that's where we're starting to look at, most of the models look at a 1 through 5, how analytically mature is your company? Are they just starting out? Are they looking to the future? Are they competing on analytics? If you haven't already, I'd definitely recommend you look up the Davenport analytical maturity models. And especially looking into openness to feedback and iterative work. Is your company open to giving, providing, and taking feedback? Are they open to iterative work? Meaning, if you show someone something, are they open to saying, yeah, that's good. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's go back and forth. Let's try something, and maybe we can do a few versions, see where this goes. And that's important in visualization, as you've seen, because it's really easy to get started and have a vision in our head. And then we see actually it switched gears a little bit, or maybe you missed something really cool that could be incorporated. That's where we're practicing giving feedback on Brightspace. Visualization is really great for iterative work, but only if your company is actually going to allow that and encourage that. So that's not to say that companies that don't encourage that shouldn't have visualizations, but it's more about encouraging that behavior and starting up that culture. So some questions to think about here. Where do dashboards currently live? Do you have Tableau server, which we don't talk a lot about in this class? Tableau server is basically a website where all of your dashboards live because they're hosted. We might start to think about dashboard spread. Does your company have too many dashboards? At one point at a company, we counted up, we had over 1,000 dashboards, and we ended up getting that down to maybe 20 key dashboards that our company actually needed. It was miserable. The process was horrible, but we looked at what was actually important to the work that we were doing, and it helped our users quite a bit to actually be focused and not have to go through thousands of dashboards. And the other key question here is the company investing in visualization as a means of visual data discovery, or is there a different goal here? So is the company investing in a tool like Tableau, Power BI, because they want you to get more engaged in visualization? They actually want to put out dashboards that people can interact with and have that, when I say visual data discovery, that interactive feel where users can go out and actually use the dashboards and not just a screenshot of them. Or is there a different goal? Sometimes the goal is we need some sort of method to this madness. Sometimes Power BI is included in our contract. Let's just use it. So really getting down to what's the company, their goal here with analytics. And it's okay if visualization is not a top priority, but that is going to change some of these requests. If visual data discovery is not a key company goal, if they're not going to encourage that, that's going to really change what kind of dashboards you would make. You wouldn't make them very interactive. You would make sure that you're focusing more on one screen, really clear labels, more just at a glance, things are very visible, versus if the company is investing in that data discovery, you can have things that are a little bit more built in. Think of the tooltips, the filtering. We'll get to Viz and tooltips next week. So some of the more advanced features. And that's again going to change. Are you going to even handle a request that's asking for more features if they're not going to be properly utilized? And then getting down to the audience. So first of all, who's asking for anything? And then who's the end user? So you want to understand their goals, their obstacles, their problems, and really their day-to-day workflows. One of the best things I learned when I started my analytical career was to actually sit with the people I was supposed to be helping. I would sit and I would watch them do their job, and I would take notes and I would ask questions, and I would get down to what's making your job difficult and how can we fix that. Sometimes you can't with data, as much as I would love to be able to fix every single problem with data, we can't always do that. But a lot of times we put up this divide between the data people and everyone else, when really we just need to ask those questions and get to know the people that are actually going to be consuming our work. What do they want to do? What are they trying to solve? Again, at different companies, it's different things. Sometimes it's, hey, I'm monitoring people. I need to have it on this very specific website. Sometimes we've got people that are really good at Excel and they just want to look at things in Excel, and that's fine. And so a key question here is, how do users currently consume visualizations? Do they consume them? Do they use them at all? Maybe visualizations are brand new. So again, that'll take us down a different path. And now with all of that context in mind, we really understand our users, our company, our team. We've got a full grasp on what's going on. Now we can actually get down to what the request is. And when I say request, this might be the first time someone's asking for a visualization. It might be a request to fix something or upgrade or change something. That context is important every single time. So now we can get into request and ask, is this request best suited for a visualization? That's not something you would ask straight up. You might have to ask some things, beat around the bush a little bit, ask some clarifying questions about how is this currently being addressed? What is this workflow that you're currently working in? Um, Ask more questions about what's going on. Is this problem being addressed in another manner? So again, are you currently going to a different dashboard and it's just that one doesn't have the right information? Maybe it just needs one more little data point or one more filter to really get to their point. Maybe a different dashboard has the answer already and they just don't know about it. Maybe a visualization isn't actually the right tool in general. And then does your data support this request? Because again, we can get down to, yes, a visualization, a real-time dashboard would be perfect. But if you don't have the data to do it, or the tools, Tableau can't do it, it's just not going to go anywhere. So being able to get down to what is actually going on, what's feasible, what's available, what's doable. So I promised a few examples. One is from a sales VP. He was very excited about data. He wanted to chat all day long about data. And we got this request from him that said, I need a dashboard that tells me if this very, very specific event has happened in the past 24 hours. So he's like, I want a dashboard. I want it just to populate. If anything has happened in the past 24 hours, it should just pop up on this dashboard. And we were going to make it for him. And then we started asking, I can't picture a dashboard that's actually just this feels just like a table, right? It's this very specific event. When we got down to what data he wanted, it was essentially a SQL query. He wanted the results of the query to be on this dashboard. So as we started asking more questions, it turned out what he thought he was asking for is he wanted to see a list of the specific event occurrences because he wanted to better coach his sales staff. He didn't necessarily need it in a dashboard form. He just knew dashboard was a magic word for our team. We did a lot of dashboards, and even 24 hours was not a big deal. He just knew that every morning he did this specific coaching method with his staff. So 24 hours seemed like a good time frame. So what he thought he wanted was a real-time dashboard or a 24-hour dashboard. What he actually wanted was a list. So what we ended up making was a daily email with a spreadsheet. So he could just take that attachment and take them to all the coaching sessions. So what he thought, again, was supposed to be this big fancy dashboard. It really was an email attachment, and that was just fine. Another example was from I don't know what to call them. They're a manager that works at the call center, so figuring out who should work when. And they came to me and said, I want a predictive model that tells me when to staff our call center. And my first thought was, absolutely not. That sounds really difficult. Anytime someone says modeling for staffing, that can be really, really tough. So I'm always going to ask questions anyway. But when I started asking more questions, I realized they didn't really know what a predictive model was, which is fine. And then really once I started getting down to what the problem was, is that there was an issue in the call center and they actually didn't think it was a staffing issue. So what they thought they were asking for was that there's an issue going on. They knew we had data could probably solve it. They didn't know how to ask us in the way that we might understand it better. So this is what they really meant. Can we solve this problem? There's some sort of issue going on. So what they actually wanted, they really did want a dashboard. They asked for a predictive model, but they wanted a dashboard. And we actually did have a dashboard, but it wasn't detailed enough. So what we ended up doing was redesigning this specific dashboard for them with more drill down options. And we actually added some alerting for them. So no model needed. It was really more just figuring out in the moment, is there an issue with technology? Is there an issue with staffing? Because staffing is done so far ahead of time that in the moment, the only thing that could have been going on is a lot of call outs or things like that. Sorry, my voice is going. So yeah, just two examples of things. Again, it's really hard to put this into very specific terms when this is such a broad topic, but more just where asking more questions and getting down to what the user actually wanted, that's what's going to give you just better communication. So to wrap this up, communication is key. If I could wave a magic wand and fix every communication issue ever, I would, because it can be really difficult working with audiences and trying to figure out what do you want on this dashboard. So communication is going to be your best friend, and it's honestly going to really up your game data-wise. You're going to get to know your stakeholders a lot better. You're going to end up having better ideas. I ended up getting a lot of compliments in my corporate world. That felt like a lifetime ago, because they understood that I got what they were going through, because I had sat with them, because I understood their problems, and because I actually tried to fix them. They came to me with more problems, and we actually worked together much better than we would have, I think. So ask for details about the underlying business problem. Really ask questions. Don't be afraid to get more details. Just make sure to mention, hey, this is so I can better help you. Prototype potential solutions. Raphael had mentioned wireframing. So even just take away the color, take away filters when you're making visualizations. Make things simple at first just to see, are we going in the right direction? And then be very intentional about the questions you ask. So try to take out the technical babble sometimes that we do. Try to take out the details, the judgment. Be intentional about asking questions about, how do you currently go about solving this problem? That sounds really difficult. How long does it take you to do this? Do you have visibility into this at all? How does, just start asking questions and the conversation will start flowing. Again, the dashboards aren't always going to be the right answer. There's nothing wrong with the spreadsheet. There's nothing wrong with the spreadsheet. With that, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for your patience for this one. We are wrapping up the semester. So next week we are doing some advanced Tableau work, some more exercises, practicing some cool visuals. And the next week after that is final projects. So I'm excited to see what you all have decided to do. I will see you next time. Bye.